So, network stuff. I'm just going to kind of dive in and show you how you'd set up a game in this, and along the way I will be explaining some of the technologies and some of the bits and bobs that I've used and kind of giving a bit of a technical breakdown, mainly for the benefit of my team. This is actually quite a technical technical in-depth analysis of what I'm doing, but hopefully it'll be useful. So, this is a lobby creation screen. Bam, bam, bam. We got all this stuff. This is all cool. Let's host a game. And it immediately brings us to our ugly little screen that we got here for testing and setting up the lobby. So the number one thing that is worth talking about here, which is the important bit, is this object here under the Don't Destroy Unload category. So this means when you change scene, nothing actually changes about this object. It doesn't destroy itself and it just persists. And it is the Gamestate tracker. And this is what I've been spending quite a bit of time working on. There are two parts of the Gamestate tracker. There is the photon view script with a view ID just stupidly high. Basically, you're not supposed to use photon with Don't Destroy Unload, but basically, if I give it a really high view ID, every time you introduce a new photon view, it increments by 1. We're not going to get 999 billion views. It's fine. We've just given it a view ID. Yeah, it's a little janky, but it works really well. And basically the idea is we have this object that we can reference whenever we like, which basically keeps a record of what's happening in the game via kind of like a self-synchronizing database structure. So you'll see here down at the bottom we have the schema object, and under that it contains player list. And player list is a list of structs which is basically a record within this self-synchronizing structure. So if we were to say select the driver slot, bam, it updates. We do that via something called a remote procedure call. So when we click onto this button, it invokes the remote procedure call. It goes to the photon view, and photon view contains the ability to do remote procedure call. So you go, oi, find the Gamestate tracker, find the game object of the Gamestate tracker, get the photon view. On that, call the method RPC, and then you find the method of the RPC and go, okay, we want to update the role of this player. And when we do that, you'll see when we leave the slot, the role updates and it goes to null. Bam, 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 bam. And it also updates the team. We can also add some bots, so it's like, there we go, we can add a bot, we can kick a bot, all that stuff. So, jumping into how this works, if I open up the script, you shouldn't have to look at this thing too much, but it should all be okay. Now once the script loads, come on JetBrains, you're just not. Oh, there we go. Cool. So basically, it's a public class called Gamestate Tracker, and it's important that we serialize all of our fields, because serialized fields mean that they can be shown in the inspector as well as serializable, which basically means that you can convert it to a string and send it over a network and a series of bits and bytes and all that. So cool. Fundamentally, we have player schema, which contains damn near everything that we actually kind of need. So we define a schema, and the schema is basically something that just contains a list of player details. Now, player details is a unique record in this structure will be created for every player who is registered in our room. So this, I would have done it using the photon network dot player object as our primary key. But the reason why we couldn't do that is because what if we wanted to introduce bots to our game? Well, you can't actually create a new player without actually them being a physical human player. So we are using the nickname as our primary key, basically. These are just going to be unique, and this is what we're searching on. If you want to add something new to this structure, all you need to do is write public whatever data type, let's say int, favorite number, for example. Write that in, add that there, int n, and then you just do favorite number equals n. And that is, ooh, did I spell something wrong? Probably. Oh, I've already done n, that's why. I. Everyone likes I as a number, don't they? Just programming an I. Bing, bing, bong. Okay, so cool. And now if we do that, you'll see in the Gamestate tracker that if it compiles, there we go. And then favourite number appears there, which is cool. And the thing is, this is public, so you can just search through this. As long as you've got the reference to the Gamestate tracker, any script can understand what's going on in the game. So we have that. And then basically what we have are just a number of public methods that we can call. So player details is the record. So what we can do, say if we want to get the instance of the photon player, so this is actually the reference of the player within our server. With this we can do things like transfer around photon views, disconnect a client, connect a client. Like this is like the real networky player, the class player. You can search up, so you can basically get the record and go, oi, find me this, otherwise return null, and that gets a reference. So that is something you can just call publicly, and it returns something. Generate player defaults. This basically just fills in. It's not really liking constructors right now. If I can fix that, I will fix that. But you generate a new record in the database, in the structure, by just giving it a name. And it doesn't actually add it, it just generates a record. The next thing you'd want to do is basically do something like add player to schema. So here we go, add player to schema. Once you have generated player details, what you need to do is use the JSON utility to convert it to a JSON object. This is a remote procedure call. That's a very important thing in Photon Unity networking. In Pun, I'm going to be calling Photon Unity networking Pun from now on. In Pun, there are two main ways to talk about communicating data. You can use a synchronized view, which basically serializes things per network tick, and basically from your client sends up to all other clients and does this kind of on a regular basis. And you want to do things like this for player positions, rotations, stuff like that. Whereas remote procedure calls are event-based, and you can do two things with them. Well, you can do numerous things with them, actually. But what you can do with them, you can send them to a client, and you can send them buffered to clients. And you can choose which clients you want to send them to. So you can say, I can send it to everyone. I can send it via the server, buffered to just the master. And you can mix and match all those options. Buffered things are quite important because if somebody joins the game late, they receive all those procedure calls so they can basically catch up on the game state. We sometimes do this with the player schema. However, when that thing fails, we've got another thing called force synchronized player list. And basically, this can be called by absolutely anyone. And all it does, it basically goes, oi, master client, can you just give us all a fresh copy of the database? And it'll go, yeah, sure. And it'll do that. It won't be buffered because it's quite an expensive operation, because it requires serializing everything into a JSON and then sending it over a network, and we don't want that to happen all the time. But yeah, force synchronized player list is a thing that exists. What other things have we got in here? We have some simple functions where you can basically just update a player list from the master. Oh yeah, we've done that. Add a bot to the schema. that's actually almost exactly the same as adding a player to the schema. May add bot to schema. This is something I do before we add a bot, and it basically just checks. Oh, sorry. It basically just checks that it does some validation checks to actually make sure you're able to add this bot, and it just returns yeah or no if you're able to add it. Update player with new record. What this does is you find a player by their nickname. Well, yeah, it takes a player's nickname and it takes player details, and it finds a player with that nickname and it replaces the entire record with something new. It's probably the most efficient update method here. It does it, yeah, which is why I've called it preferred method. It does that, and then for now, it's a little bit bandwidth hoggy, but we then just force synchronization. If you call this buffered, without that, it should be fine, but for now, there's still some optimizations to be made to the netcode. Update player role, very simple, updates whether somebody is a gunner or a driver. Update player character, that will update their character, so you know, that's characters. We haven't actually implemented those yet, but the code is there. Update team, and get player pairs is something that what it does is it gets all of the players that are registered, and it looks at the vehicles that they're in and the teams that they're on, and it returns you a list of records, and each of them should basically be 2 people long. So it basically gives you a list of pairs of people which will be separated based on their vehicles. And this is all by the Gamestate tracker, and the Gamestate tracker doesn't really know what's going on. It's just kind of a structure that says, yeah, this is what has been registered in the game. This is basically gospel. And it's just a really efficient way over a network to actually consult this rather than having to find things and look all over it. And it just really makes sure things are nice and consistent. But yeah, it's super easy to add to. Like I said, you just kind of change things in the player record. You can add any properties you want at the top, like we've got map details, of course, so that will keep track of the map we're on. And we have got have we got anything else? No, not really. Let's keep track of that on the map. Oh, so yeah, it's like some things I want to add to that is like a timer. So the Gamestate tracker will have the authoritative timer that is going on. Really, like any kind of stat in the game that you want synchronized between all players, plonk it in this. So yeah, that's cool. And in the next episode, I'm going to show you how I synchronize vehicles and how control separation takes place.